Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today, we are taking a closer look at recent commentary that has been circulating within the Iraqi Dinar community regarding Iraq's political process and the possibility of future exchange rate developments. As always, our goal is to examine these discussions through the lens of economic fundamentals, verified information, and responsible financial analysis, rather than speculation or sensational claims. The comments we are discussing today express the view that the completion of Iraq's government formation could serve as an important milestone for broader economic reforms, and that currency watchers should pay close attention to exchange rate developments in the weeks that follow. While many observers share the belief that political stability can strengthen economic confidence, it is important to understand that these statements represent opinions and expectations rather than official announcements from Iraqi authorities. At the time of this discussion, there has been no official confirmation from Iraq's monetary authorities that a major exchange rate adjustment is scheduled for any specific date. This distinction is extremely important because expectations, rumors, and personal forecasts often circulate much faster than verified government decisions. Political stability has long been considered one of the foundations of sustainable economic growth. Whenever a country successfully forms a stable government, investors often view that as a positive signal because it may improve the government's ability to implement reforms, approve budgets, attract foreign investment, and maintain long-term economic planning. In Iraq's case, political developments are closely watched because they can influence confidence in the country's ability to continue modernizing its banking sector, strengthen public finances, expand infrastructure projects, and encourage private sector investment. However, it is equally important to recognize that political progress alone does not automatically produce changes in the value of a nation's currency. Currency policy is among the most carefully managed responsibilities of a central bank. Exchange rates are influenced by a wide range of economic factors that extend well beyond politics. Inflation, foreign exchange reserves, oil revenues, trade balances, government spending, interest rate policy, banking sector stability, investor confidence, and international economic conditions all contribute to the overall environment in which exchange rate decisions are made. Even when economic reforms are moving in a positive direction, monetary authorities generally proceed cautiously because sudden changes in exchange rate policy can have significant consequences for inflation, imports, exports, and overall financial stability. The recent commentary also encourages followers to monitor the exchange rate very closely over the coming weeks. While it is understandable that investors and observers pay close attention during periods of political change, it is important to remember that official policy decisions are what ultimately matter. Financial markets often react to confirmed announcements rather than speculation. Rumors may generate discussion within online communities, but sustainable market movements are generally driven by verified economic developments and official actions from policymakers. One of the themes mentioned in the commentary is the role of supply and demand in determining currency values. Supply and demand certainly play an important role in foreign exchange markets. When confidence in an economy improves and demand for a country's currency increases, that currency may strengthen under certain conditions. Likewise, if demand weakens or economic uncertainty increases, a currency may face downward pressure. However, countries that operate managed exchange rate systems frequently have central banks that actively participate in the market to maintain stability. This means that exchange rate movements are often influenced not only by market demand, but also by monetary policy decisions and official interventions designed to reduce excessive volatility. For Iraq, Oil continues to represent one of the most significant sources of national income. Global energy prices, therefore, remain an important factor affecting government revenues, foreign exchange reserves, and overall fiscal stability. Strong oil revenues can improve the country's financial position, support public investment, and strengthen reserve levels. At the same time, policymakers continue working toward economic diversification so that future growth becomes less dependent on fluctuations in global oil markets. Long-term diversification into manufacturing, agriculture, technology, tourism, logistics, and private enterprise is widely viewed as an important objective for creating a more resilient economy. Banking sector modernization is another critical area, receiving attention from economists and policymakers. Improving payment systems, strengthening regulatory oversight, expanding digital banking services, increasing financial inclusion, and enhancing anti-money laundering standards all contribute to building confidence in the financial system. These reforms may not immediately change the exchange rate, but they help create the institutional foundation needed for sustainable economic development over the long term. Foreign investment is another factor frequently discussed in relation to Iraq's economic future. International investors generally seek environments that provide legal certainty, transparent regulations, efficient financial systems, reliable infrastructure, and political stability. Progress in these areas can gradually improve investor confidence and encourage additional capital inflows. Increased investment can support job creation, infrastructure development, technology transfer, and broader economic expansion. Nevertheless, investment decisions are typically based on comprehensive assessments rather than expectations surrounding exchange rate speculation alone. The commentary also refers to the possibility of the Iraqi dinar moving significantly higher over time. It is important to emphasize that any discussion of future exchange rate levels remains speculative unless supported by official announcements and measurable economic data. Exchange rate adjustments involve complex policy considerations and cannot be accurately predicted by individuals outside the official decision-making process. While many observers remain optimistic about Iraq's long-term economic potential, optimism should always be balanced with realistic expectations and careful evaluation of verified information. Economic reforms usually unfold gradually, rather than overnight. Governments often implement changes through multiple stages that include legislative reforms, institutional improvements, banking modernization, infrastructure investment, fiscal adjustments, and regulatory updates. Each step contributes to strengthening the broader economy, but the cumulative impact often becomes visible only over an extended period. This gradual approach helps reduce financial risks and supports greater long-term stability. Another important aspect of the discussion involves market psychology. Expectations themselves can influence investor sentiment, but expectations do not replace official policy. Financial markets often experience periods where optimism or pessimism temporarily affects trading behavior. However, over the longer term, economic fundamentals generally play the dominant role in determining sustainable currency performance. That is why professional analysts place significant emphasis on measurable indicators such as inflation, GDP growth, employment, government finances, reserve levels, and productivity, rather than relying solely on forecasts or rumors. The international economic environment also deserves consideration. Global interest rates, geopolitical developments, commodity prices, international trade conditions, and financial market volatility all influence currency markets around the world. Iraq does not operate in isolation, and external developments can affect domestic economic conditions. Policymakers therefore evaluate both domestic and international factors when making monetary decisions. For followers of the Iraqi dinar, maintaining a disciplined approach to information is especially important. Social media and online forums often contain a mixture of accurate reporting, personal opinions, rumors, and speculation. Responsible analysis involves verifying information through official sources, comparing multiple credible reports, and recognizing the difference between confirmed developments and individual expectations. This approach helps reduce the risk of making decisions based on incomplete or inaccurate information. Short-term economic developments are likely to remain focused on government activity, implementation of approved reforms, fiscal management, banking modernization, investment initiatives, and overall economic performance. These areas provide useful indicators regarding Iraq's economic direction. However, short-term fluctuations should always be interpreted within the broader context of long-term structural reforms rather than viewed as definitive evidence of major policy changes. Looking further ahead, Iraq possesses several strengths that could support continued economic progress. The country has substantial natural resources, a strategic geographic location, a growing population, opportunities for infrastructure development, and increasing efforts to modernize financial institutions. If reforms continue successfully over time, these factors could contribute to stronger economic performance, increased private sector activity, and improved investor confidence. Even so, long-term progress depends on consistent implementation of reforms, effective governance, sound fiscal management, and stable economic policies. Another consideration is inflation. Central banks around the world carefully monitor inflation because maintaining price stability is one of their primary responsibilities. Significant exchange rate adjustments can influence import prices, consumer purchasing power, and business costs. As a result, monetary authorities typically evaluate potential inflationary effects before making important currency policy decisions. This cautious approach helps preserve economic stability and public confidence. Fiscal discipline also plays a major role in economic credibility. Responsible government budgeting, sustainable public spending, effective tax administration, and prudent debt management contribute to long-term financial stability. Investors often evaluate these factors when assessing the overall strength of an economy. Improvements in fiscal management can enhance confidence and support broader economic objectives over time. But extra-fund development remains another essential pillar of economic growth. Investments in transportation networks, electricity generation, water systems, telecommunications, and industrial facilities can improve productivity and encourage private investment. These projects often require years to complete, but they contribute to building a stronger economic foundation capable of supporting future growth. Education and workforce development are equally important. Expanding educational opportunities, vocational training, and professional skills helps prepare the labor force for a more diversified economy. A skilled workforce attracts investment, supports innovation, and strengthens long-term competitiveness in regional and global markets. It is also worth noting that exchange rate discussions often attract significant public attention because currency values affect purchasing power, trade, investment, and overall economic confidence. However, successful monetary policy is typically measured not by dramatic short-term movements, but by long-term stability, predictable inflation, and sustainable economic growth. These objectives often require patience and consistent policy implementation, rather than rapid adjustments. As viewers continue following developments related to Iraq's economy, it is helpful to focus on objective indicators rather than predetermined expectations. Official statements, published economic reports, central bank announcements, government budgets, investment data, inflation figures, and international assessments provide valuable information for understanding the country's economic direction. These sources offer a stronger analytical foundation than unverified rumors or speculative timelines. The broader message from today's discussion is that Iraq continues pursuing economic reforms while observers remain interested in how political developments may influence future policy decisions. Political progress can certainly improve confidence and create opportunities for reform, but exchange rate policy remains the responsibility of monetary authorities and depends on comprehensive economic analysis rather than any single event. Responsible observers should therefore remain patient, evaluate information carefully, and recognize that meaningful economic transformation usually occurs over time through consistent reforms rather than sudden changes. As always, thank you for watching and spending your time with us. If you appreciate responsible, balanced, and factual coverage of Iraqi dinar developments and Iraq's economy, remember to subscribe to the channel and like this video so you never miss future updates. We remain committed to presenting verified information, thoughtful analysis, and objective reporting rather than speculation. Finally, please remember that this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, investment, or trading advice, and viewers should always conduct their own research and consult qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions.